Hey everyone, my name's Arrow. I go by they, them pronouns. And today I'm going to be talking about my brain. So, a lot of people who know me don't actually know very much about my conditions or my physical health, but I've been struggling with chronic pain since I was about 8. Yeah, so what condition do I have? What are my symptoms? So I have a condition called a Chiari 1 malformation. Um, Basically, what this means is that my skull is like this, right? So this is the back of my skull right here. And my brain, I mean, it's my hand, but my brain basically goes slightly lower. So brains are typically supposed to sit like here. My brain goes like here. So it's what's called my brain tonsils go down slightly too far past the edge of my skull. The issue with this is that it puts pressure on the brain stem, so it causes issues with that, and it's also it makes it more difficult for the cerebral spinal fluid to flow in and out of my brain, because everyone's brains are constantly like, and that's kind of like, your brain is regulating things. It needs that constant flow. So basically mine is more like yeah. So basically my brain is too big for my skull, and it's dry and it's cramped. Chiari 1 malformations can cause people no symptoms, very few symptoms, or a lot of symptoms. And sometimes it doesn't even depend on how far the brain tonsils go down. I was diagnosed as having Chiari 1 when I was 14. I had to think about that. Yeah, I was having at the time really, really bad migraines pretty frequently. Like, I was getting, I would say I had migraines probably about twice a week. Sometimes more, sometimes less. And then I was having very intense dizzy spells where like the world would just completely spin and I couldn't really get it to stop even when I was lying down. And like, I could barely walk. And I would experience a lot of pain, as well as daily headaches. Now, at the time, I was really, really struggling with my mental health. When my mental health started to get better, I found that my pain was less severe and less frequent. It was still happening. I was still suffering, but it was less intense. Around this time, it was when I got my MRI. I had an MRI as a baby, actually, but something that's significant about Chiari malformation is that a lot of MRIs before 2007 could not properly detect and have a good enough imaging to show the problem. It was very underdiagnosed because all the symptoms are so random and because they relate to a lot of other conditions. And so, they didn't notice that for me as a baby, and I'm sure lots of other people. I think it's likely that my mom struggles with this, and she's had MRIs, but it was before 2000. I got my second MRI when I was 14, and then they were like, oh, like this is a thing. So they sent me to Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto, and I got another MRI, and which was like reviewed by a neurologist. And basically at the time, the neurologist was like, well, there are surgeries that help with Chiari, but they do impact your brain, so that is a big deal. And because you're 14, and because you say your symptoms are improving a bit, and also because of the amount of like the length of my brain tonsils, he was like, this doesn't seem like a severe enough case to operate at the moment. I was like, okay, I just have to live with this. From that was a big thing that impacted me. Just because someone can deal with something doesn't mean that they should. And I think now that I'm older, that that I'm technically like legally an adult, I have the ability to consent more authentically to a procedure like that. It's still surgery and it's still brain surgery, so it's kind of scary, but I'm also like, there's just so much of an impact on my life, and I'm sure that it impacts my mental health. I also know for me, some of the symptoms that I struggle with, just like I said, I get migraines pretty frequently, not as frequently as I used to, although they have been picking up again. I would say 1 to 4 a month, maybe. Um, yeah, and I have headaches every day, pretty much all the time. Although it increases and decreases in intensity. Like even right now, I feel it. I feel a headache right at the base of my skull where the spot would be. This is made worse by exercising, straining, stretching, coughing, yelling. Yeah. It's great. It's fun. I love it. But yeah, so that I do also have a migraine today. I am on ibuprofen. I take ibuprofen for headaches and migraines very frequently. Currently, I'm doing that probably 1 to 4 times a week to manage migraines. I try not to take it if I don't have to, but I also, the thing about migraines is if you don't take something right away, it can become really bad very quickly. Today it's likely because of the weather, because it's overcast. When, I can tell it's a migraine because some of the things when it was coming on is I started to feel a bit nauseous, started to feel sensitive to light. But I've had all sorts of different types of migraines with different symptoms. Usually it does relate to having my senses be super sensitive. I'll feel off emotionally and mentally. Head pain, dizziness, nausea. Other symptoms for me from Chiari include neck pain and back pain. My neck and my back have been in pain since I was a kid. They're always in pain. Again, it varies with intensity depending on what I'm doing, depending on my posture, depending on so many things. I struggle with hypermobility spectrum disorder, so basically hypermobile joints, laxatives, lax ligaments. Most joints kind of do this. My joints can do this, but they can also go like this. And it's painful and it hurts and it aches. And my mom recently described it as when you lose a tooth too early, when you're a kid and you're losing your teeth, and if you pull out a tooth, it kind of has that hollow, weird sort of pain, achiness, and emptiness. It feels sort of like that, and I get that in my shoulders. I get that in my hips and my knees, my fingers, my ankles. So sometimes my hips, my knees, my shoulders will just randomly come slightly out of joint, and it will suck, and it can make walking difficult, it can make playing sports difficult, it can make exercising difficult in general, or just even sitting around. And there's been times where I have to pull it out and then put it back in. Again, not pulling it fully out, but just kind of pushing it away, because sometimes it will settle improperly or end on a nerve. When I was little, I used to have a lot of times where I'd wake up in the middle of the night, my hip had dislocated and then closed back on a nerve, and it was really painful, and my foot would go numb, and it sucked. So that, my fingers don't really come out of joint, but because they're so loose and because there is more there is more movement in the joints than they're supposed to be. I've not been diagnosed with arthritis at the moment, but it's likely that it will develop. Basically, my hands just feel sore all the time now. Chiari also gives me trouble swallowing. I feel like I have a constant lump in my throat all the time. I felt this way for a very long time. It can make it difficult to breathe sometimes. I've been short of breath for a long time. I just kind of blamed it on anxiety. as well as like I would blame my mental health for my muscles being sore and hurting and tired and feeling weak, and my joints being sore and tired. And, you know, there's some legitimacy to that as well. Mental health can definitely cause those symptoms, but Chiari can also cause those symptoms, and mine can be pretty intense sometimes. And I think there's definitely an overlap on the way that different conditions affect me in that way. I also still struggle with dizziness and lightheadedness, coordination, balance. My coordination and balance aren't super bad, and I've always just kind of been like, oh, that's just a part of who I am. I'm just kind of a clumsy person. I'm just kind of accident prone person. But like, you know, Chiari affects that part of your brain. It's like I've been living with these symptoms for so long that it's just kind of who I am. I view things as like, oh, I should be able to do that. Oh, like I'm, you know, not succeeding as much as I want to because I'm not trying hard enough. And, you know, there's a bunch of stuff that kind of like in our society that promotes those harmful messages. But, you know, for me, I was kind of just like, oh, you know, there's no reason that things should be more difficult for me than anyone else. But it's like, I mean, I'm in constant pain all the time. That's going to make mental health more difficult. It's going to make it more difficult to accomplish tasks. And like, that's fair and that deserves acknowledgement. And it doesn't mean I can't do things usually, but it does mean that I have to approach things differently. You know, I spent so much of my life being so hard on myself. And, you know, part of my healing from various aspects of trauma in my life, and part of my healing from being so hard and so self-critical is accepting that I am disabled and accepting that I need to have different standards of functionality and different standards of achievement than other people. Not necessarily lower, not necessarily higher, just different. I'm currently dealing with my Chiari and saying, hey, I don't have to just suck up that I'm in pain and suck up that things are difficult. Like, I can do things. And you know, how I've been doing this is I have been advocating for myself better. I had a doctor that I didn't feel comfortable with, that I felt wasn't helping me or taking care of my needs or taking me seriously. So I switched doctors recently last year, and that was one of the best decisions I've ever made. And I've also started accepting like using different aids to help with my symptoms. Like I have a neck brace, a knee brace, blue light glasses, a cane, whatever. So I'm that's been a process, and I would be really I want to make a video talking about the different things that I use and how they help me. So that will be coming soon for anyone who's interested, who also might be struggling with Chiari, or just might be struggling with some of the same symptoms, or might just be curious. With this new doctor, I've started advocating for myself to have that surgery, or at least to have a consultation with a neurologist. So I have a consult with a neurologist actually in a couple weeks, and I've been waiting for this for months, so I'm excited about that. People don't talk about Chiari. It's something that is pretty rare, and it's something that doesn't have a lot of attention, but there's a lot of people who are struggling with a lot of symptoms and who aren't getting care. And I was one of those people, and there's a lot of people out there in the world that struggle with this, and there is no easy cure. Like, surgery can help, but it doesn't fix everything. And for some people, it doesn't even really fix much. This last year, I've really taken the realization of like, oh shit, like I can say that I have chronic pain, and I shouldn't have to be in pain for the rest of my life, and I deserve to be able to take care of myself and make changes to my life so that it's easier and less painful. And like, even if I could, if I really push myself, do things in a way that is more normative, like I don't have to. And you know, like that was really empowering for me, and I'm still struggling a little bit to feel like I have the right to call myself disabled. Um, but under the social model of disability, it makes a lot of sense for me. And it is something that exploring this label has helped me explore, kind of like taking power back over my life and not accepting that I have to be in pain all the time or that I don't deserve medical care. I haven't allowed myself to use aids that have been helpful to me because, like, you know, I didn't think that I had it bad enough to use aids that could help me, even though they could help me. I feel like I'm finally facing up to my health difficulties and doing what I need to do to take care of myself. So I hope that you learned something or found something relatable or something, or just enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a great day. Okay.